Hey everyone, I hope you guys are doing well. I wanted to bring you a video on how to get an apartment with bad credit. Now, in this video, I'm also going to give you tips on how to improve or increase your credit score really quickly, along with how to get an apartment even if your credit is bad. So stay tuned for the tricks and tips. If you are new to my channel, please give this video a thumbs up and also consider subscribing to my channel if you are interested on how to improve your credit in your credit journey. Even if you are interested on learning how to leverage credit, your good credit, to make money. So I also have a business channel if you want to learn how to keep your full-time job and start a part-time business at home and different side hustles to make money. You can subscribe to that channel also. So let's jump into the content. Also, one other note, I know a lot of people were looking for me. I used to give credit analyzations and consultations, but it has been overwhelming. So I will April 2021, you will be able to join. I'm going to set up right now my Teachable. I already have Teachable courses, but I will be giving group coaching. So credit coaching, also it'll be a library setup for letters, even if those that already purchased my letters. But as I'm giving classes in my Teachable and also group coaching, we will have new letters and you will have a library of content to help you improve your credit score. So look out for that in April. So let's jump into the video. Number one, if you're looking for an apartment and you have bad credit, the number one tip, you need to look for private landlords, because private landlords versus big buildings have more leeway to work with your credit situation. So here's the inside scoop. I am a landlord. I'm a mom and pop landlord. And when it comes down to those big complexes, you guys might not be aware, but many of times it's not based on their credit. They are getting that based on the income of that building. So anytime they rent to you, many of those companies must send your lease to that mortgage holder to approve you as a tenant. And many of times the banks, that's the mortgage holder, have a real strict requirement far as credit score, also income requirements. And even if you're a person that receive subsidy, many of time those income requirements for your subsidized rent, those standards are beyond what maybe a program like Section 8 in New Jersey TRW might require. So you're better off by sometimes looking for a private landlord who can work with your situation and have more discretion to give you an apartment. Another key, many of my clients I'm currently working with have collections via evictions. So they might not have an eviction judgment reporting on their credit report, but they have a collection from back rent. Now, when it comes down to third-party collectors, that was not your original landlord. So number one, you and that original landlord who went into that agreement, when you signed that lease, you had to give them permission in order to sell that debt to a third-party collector. They have to get your permission beforehand. And many a times you need to look at your lease. If not, you need to send a debt validation letter demanding from that third-party company the original lease. Also, I'm a landlord in the state of New Jersey. There are different states, different landlord-tenant laws. So that law governs the relationship between yourself and your landlord. Many a times, if like in the state of New Jersey, if you have a lease, a year lease, and you move out of that apartment, that landlord cannot charge you that whole lease. They can only charge you for up to when they didn't get rent as the apartment was on rented. So let's say you have a full year's lease, you leave 2 months within that lease, but the next month the landlord rents that apartment. In the state of New Jersey, they cannot hold you responsible for that whole year's lease. They can only hold you responsible for the months that that unit was left unrented. So if you're a person that was in an apartment unit, if you had security, the security should have been applied to that rent. And whatever is left over or the balance is what you should owe. So you need to take that in mind. If you moved out of a place, they said that you had damages, what was the amount of the damages and what did they do with your security? They generally, in most states, they are required to notify you what was the damages, what was the leftover rent, and how was your security applied. If it was any leftover security, that should have came back to you. If all the security was used and it covered the full amount of what was owed, you should not owe any money. So when it comes down to that third party eviction collection, they don't have that information. So I have special letters designed just for situations like that to demand certain accounting from those companies, which they cannot produce. So that is another tip. Or you can just write up a debt validation letter yourself. That's your right under the federal law. Each collection that you have is costing you on your credit score about 23 points apiece. So my third tip is just dealing with medical collections and consumer collections. Just like I just said, these third-party collectors, even with medical bills, especially medical bills in particular, that third party, that is coming from information between yourself and your primary care, either doctor or medical facility. When they give your medical information or personalized personal identifier information that should be protected under the HIPAA law to a third-party company, that is a violation of that law, the HIPAA law. They should not know your private information. So I have a special debt validation letter also at my website for medical collections, because if they send you a bill back and they have your private medical information or even procedures, that is a violation of the HIPAA law. So them being a third party, where did you give them a legal right to have access to your medical information? Remember, even if you have a job, even if you are going for a job, you have to sign a release form to your physician to release your personal private medical information. So you can send a debt validation letter and to get that off of your credit, to have that company to stop reporting that debt. Now, when it comes down to consumer collections, that's things like credit card debt. Consumer collections is just about the same thing. That third party, what gives them a legal right to collect on that debt? Keep in mind, your relationship with the original creditor is your relationship. You did not release your right for them to sell that debt to a third party. That third party, you never got a shirt or an Uber ride. So how do you owe them a debt? They have to prove their legal right to collect on that debt. If not, that is defamation of your character on all of these parts. So you want to send even a consumer collector a debt validation letter. That is your right under the law. If you need those letters, they're at my website. So that is my third tip. To with bad credit, how to get an apartment. The next way, you should try to, if you have collections, there are many times if you're trying to get an apartment, some landlords will deal with negative items, but sometimes a negative item or a charge off within a year, you can be disqualified. So it all depends on how that landlord is looking at your credit report, or even that company. So one of the tips that you can do if you have a charge off, you can dispute it through the 3 major credit bureaus. You can send a dispute letter, or you can settle the debt. If you set up a payment plan, there are different ways where you can do pay for deletion, only for charge-offs, not collections. I never, tell you guys to pay for a collection, but only for charge-offs. I have something that's called S&A, Satisfactory in Accordance Agreement, and that is a way for you to settle that debt. You can look at my prior video where I go into details with that. So I have a settlement way so you can settle that debt, and also a letter for that. Or you can dispute that item through the credit bureaus. And I also have dispute letters along with that. So that's another way. Any negative item like a collection, especially within a year, that is costing you on average, not a collection, a charge off, that can cost you on average about 15 to 23 points negative on your credit report. Now, ways that you can do are what you can do, and I'm going to give you tips on how to increase your credit score also really quickly if you need to qualify for an apartment. But one way is, if you don't have much time and you just need to, where your credit is, try to make an offer or try to get yourself into the apartment. Here's some tips on doing that without touching your credit. Number 1, you can offer the landlord to pay more security. So what you can tell that landlord, yeah, I know I don't have the best credit. How about if I pay extra in my security deposit? Now, there are certain states that has a certain fixed rate on security deposit. Like my state of New Jersey, where I'm a landlord, you can only take a month and a half security. Places also where I'm a landlord in Connecticut, you can only take 2 months of security. So certain states have a cap. So if you're in a state that there's a cap on that security deposit, your next option is to offer to pay the landlord an increased amount of the monthly rent. So what you can do is sweeten the deal to tell the landlord, I know I don't have a great payment history, or I have some trouble history in the past. How about instead of paying $1,000 in rent, I'll pay you $200 extra, $1,200 in rent. So if that landlord cannot take that extra security deposit because of the landlord tenant laws in their state, by you paying an extra $200, $150, you are sweetening the deal for that landlord to take the chance on you. So many a times, if that's a difference between your kids being in a better school system, a better environment, it might be worth the cost of paying the increased rent just to get into a better area or to get the apartment that you want. So that's also a tip. Another tip, many landlords will actually take you, especially on the private landlord side, if you have a higher income. So one way you can increase your income to show, maybe I don't have the strongest credit score or credit history, but I have more income, is start doing gig work. So driving Uber, Instacart, any way that if you already have a full-time job, to show that you also have additional income, that might also sweeten the deal. Because many landlords might have a requirement. Like for my apartments, at least the person is making at least, for me, 2 months or whatever the rent is, they have to make double that in a month in their monthly income. So if you want to show a landlord, hey, I make 3 times that amount, to give them more security to take a chance on you, you can increase your income or show them that you do gig work on the side, and that will show that you make more income than what your monthly amount that you're making just with your normal job, and you can show them that you have extra income on the side. Another thing, if you want to increase your credit score really quickly, One of the tips that you can do to increase your credit score, even like within 4 days, if you time it right, you want to pay down your credit cards. You want to make sure that if you have credit cards, that you are only, you're not going over. I'm going to tell people 29%. Just by paying your credit cards down, you can see an increase in your credit score within a matter of days. What you need to do is call your credit card company, find out what's the reporting date, and then find out what is the reporting date and the closing date on your credit card. So say, for instance, I know one of my cards, the closing date is on the 4th. The reporting date is somewhere around the 8th. I'll make sure I pay that card down by the 1st of the month to make sure that card balance is down. So if you were carrying a higher balance the previous month before and it shows that card has paid down, or your overall utilization is lower, you'll see an instant increase in your credit score. So that's a tip. You need to do that before you start applying for apartments. Make sure that you get credit monitoring, check your credit score, and see if you can do little tricks like that. Pay down your utilization to see your score go up really quickly. Another tip to increase your credit score, adding unsecured lines of credit. Let me say it again for the people in the back. Unsecured lines of credit, not secured credit cards, not self-builders. If y'all have not experienced my rant on self-builders, please go check out that video. You don't want to add self-builders or debt to try to increase your credit. Especially if you're looking for an apartment. They're already looking for what can you afford. So they're looking at your disposable income after you pay your car note, after you pay your bills. So why would you add more debt to try to increase your? Because if you're paying a self-builder account, which is $180 a month, guess what? You can't afford that apartment the same. So one of the ways that you can increase your credit score by 49 points is by adding unsecured lines of credit. That means revolving credit cards, point blank, period. If you can add a credit card, unsecured, go and see my videos on how to get the shopping cart trick, how to add on trade lines, certain unsecured trade lines. You can see an increase in your credit score by 49 points. And in a matter of days, if that new card report at a certain time. So you have to wait till that card report, then you'll see an increase in your credit score. So that's a tip. Another thing which you can do if you got bad credit to get a apartment with bad credit, get references from your prior landlords. There are some people that have, I'm a landlord, you're dealing with personalities, and sometimes that person just don't like you. You know, sometimes a landlord might have did something, you know, vindictive, or, you know, because people, you know, different people, different things. You might have had a problem with somebody in that rental office. So if you happen to have a bad situation with that landlord or that apartment complex, see if you can go to your prior landlords and actually get a reference letter. I have done this for many tenants in the past. If they didn't screw me over, I would give you a reference letter. I will tell you, you were a good tenant. This is why you want to make it a habit not to burn people. You want to make sure if you have a landlord now, you might want to leave that situation in the best possible situation, because trust and believe, many companies want either way from that prior landlord a reference, or a reference from a prior landlord. So that can help your situation. Also, another tip is to get a cosigner. A cosigner with better credit than you, of course. Not a cosigner with bad credit too. No, a cosigner with better credit than you. And also with maybe a higher income. So many times people know if that person go on a lease or co-sign on that lease and they got good credit, they're going to make sure even if you skip out on that bill, that generally they're going to pay it for you because they want to maintain their good credit. So a co-signer is always a good option. And last and not least, if you are a person that has bad credit, see if you can find rental assistance. In the state of New Jersey, they have tons of it. The state of New York, they have tons of it. And one of them in the state of New Jersey could be TRA. Some landlords like it, some of them don't. It depends on the requirement. Section 8. Some of these, even Catholic charities in the state will help people sometimes with temporary rental assistance. Also, if you're a veteran, there's many people that if you're a vet, active military, sometimes you can just find rental assistance from having that history where you can receive help. So many a times with a landlord, if they see that there's an agency that is going to pay that rent for you, even though you have troubled credit, they might be more willing to take the secured income. So many people don't do their due diligence, but make sure that even if you have a job, if you think that you make too much income, there's different programs. Like I know in the state of New Jersey with Catholic charities. Also, what was the other one? Oh my God, what's the other one? Because I have worked with these programs. With Home Lives Here, that's in Middlesex County. These people will work with sometimes giving you rental assistance. Now I know Hope Lives Here in Middlesex County actually is a program that look for landlords, private landlords that are willing to work with people with at least good rental, not even good rental history, but they make good income, but they might have trouble credit. So you should look for programs even like that. You might not need the rental assistance, but those programs will even vet you out, and they will have a relationship. And some of them, they will pay your security deposit, or they will pay your rent for a couple of months. So don't think because I make a certain amount of money, I can't get rental assistance. Depending on the state you're in, it might not be, that might not be the case. I know in the state of New Jersey, some of these programs require for that person to be able to afford the rent in order to get the rental assistance. TRA, they're through actually Social Security Administration. They're different. If you have zero income or a certain low income, they will pay your rent for a certain amount of time. So hopefully these are some tips that help you to get an apartment with bad credit. If you have any questions, leave it in my comment section, and maybe I can help you guys. Let me know what you think of the video, and if it helped you get an apartment, let me know. All right, be blessed. Bye-bye.